Hi everyone, welcome to Stitchwick Creations. This video follows the progress of making a cast fierce doll into a Spirit of Spring. She's made for Josy of Creative Crystal Dolls. I'll link a description in the below. On our last swap, she made me a winter spirit, and we had so much fun doing our last swap that we decided to make another one, but we swapped over our original idea boards so that I'm making something from my ideas board and she's making something from her ideas board, if that makes any sense. I've already prepared the doll, I've removed her hair, and I've wiped her face off with pure acetone. I'm using floral wire to make an armature for some antlers. As a nature spirit, they all have antlers, right? Or horns? Yeah? With a thinner gauge wire, I pad out the main part of the antlers and add some spurs. And then with the magic of editing, the second antler will appear. Now I start adding some polymer clay. This stuff's from a shop called The Range and it's in their craft section. It's their own brand. I've not used this before, but it's pretty good. I do the first pass to cover the wire and any straggly bits that are sticking out. The silicone tip tools are brilliant for getting into the small spaces that my chubby sausage fingers can't get into, and they're really good for kneading it into the little gaps. This teeny terracotta flower pot is just the right size to stop the head rolling around and let me work on the antlers. It's amazing. Now that the metal is all covered, I get to go to town with tiny snakes of clay and give it the feeling of vines and branches and all twisty knotty things growing up the antlers. To try and hide my fingerprints and give the bark underneath a bit more texture, I use a nail art tool to try and add some details by giving it a little jiggle about. I use some fancy mica powder with a bit of a green shimmer to it at the base of the horns to try and make the transition from the green head to blend a bit with the antlers, and mostly because it's just pretty and shiny and I needed to use it. All baked and still hot. Don't touch it. No, don't touch it. Stupid. So after it's cooled, I take them out so I can reroute the head, marking where they sit so I don't put hair in the horn's place. I'm using Ghost and Pixie Dust nylon from Doll's Hair Emporium, and I start plugging. I was trying to go for a blossom bursting through the snow kind of feel with the hair, and later on I've added some bits of spring green from an old wig that I have to give it a bit more of a spring feel. So because I'm a bit of a mess, and I realised after rerouting the front of a hairline, I need to paint the head the colour that the hair is so it doesn't show through when I'm messing with the hair. So I'll wipe the black off with some acetone and paint the scalp, and I'll leave the horns spaces so that I don't reroute there and I can see where they are. So now the head's dried, back to the reroute. First of all, I block in her fringe, and then I do the rest of her head in sections. And that's a whole lot of hair. Time for our trusty Yoo-hoo glue to hold it all together and make sure it doesn't fall out. Now it's the burrito time. Wrap her hair up to keep it safe from the MSC build-up, and then I'll give the face another wipe over with pure acetone to make sure that there aren't any oils from my hands or the clay that might have left any residue and caused any issues. And then prep with a couple of layers of MSC and we can start doing the face. Using inscribed chalk pastels, I start blushing the face. I find breaking the chalks down onto some paper or something makes it easier for the brush to pick up the chalk particles. I use a kneaded eraser to remove some of the pastels or blend them back if I've gone a bit too heavy. I also use a normal rubber for any sort of definite lines or definite erasings that I do. I use a variety of greens to give her face some depth and help shape her face, so darken shadows and highlights. I also add some brighter spring greens to make her look a bit more lush and verdant. With a colour slightly darker than her face, I start sketching out her features. I try to give her an open and hopeful look, but you'll see how that turns out later on. I use the same green to add some hair and darken her eyebrows. And then with a super sharp pencil, I fill in the lips, and I had to smush her head a little bit to get to the creases and crevices of her lip mould. So this is now the point where her sunny disposition has turned into a "I'm done with your shit, winter" kind of face. To be fair, that's kind of how I was feeling about winter and the dark days at this point. So, art imitates life. I add some of the shiny mica powdery stuff to her face, and it starts making it all magical and glowy and ethereal. It's really pretty, sparkly. In with the highlights and the shadows and the detailing in her brows, and then I go back and forth between her eyes and her eyebrows, adding layers of colour and depth to the lines, trying to build up her face until I'm happy with it. And now it's time to unwrap her and put her antlers on. I need some antlers. I would like some antlers, please. And then I decided to go a little bit crazy with my ideas, and I started looking at some flowing gowns for inspiration. I found this amazing Queen Amidala dress that was from the Phantom Menace film, and that's the kind of drapery that I'm after. So I sketch out an idea and then work out how the dress would be made. I sketch out a pattern, and then I'm going to make a mock-up for some fabric scraps that I have. And I'm really bad at explaining myself when it comes to this kind of stuff and the design process, so I hope the visuals explain it as well or better than I can verbally. I mark out on a piece of ribbon the various points of her body so I know where to sew the panels to. I mark that on a piece of paper and then sketch out the panels that I will need to cut out from the fabric for the dress. I use baking paper because it's slightly see-through when I make all my pattern pieces, and then I will draw it out fully and use that as a mock-up panel pattern piece. Just to make it awkward, I've given it a high-low hemline, and I have to keep referring to the previous piece that I've made to make sure that they meet up and it goes around fully and meets at the right places. Hopefully I haven't pickled anybody's brains too much, mine certainly is, but the mock-up's made up from some curtain lining that I had, and at this point I just wanted to see if the pieces went together very well, so I wasn't fussed about how the fabric would hang and would be tweaking that one later. As I've said before, I'm either all planning or all on the fly, but this is one of those projects that's a bit of both. Now I know how the dress goes together, I'm going to work out the little tweaks that I do as I go along, and it's time to get kind of technical-ish. I've picked the most awkward fabric that I could, silk. It's pretty and flowy and I get to hand paint it, so I'm all for that. But it's an absolute bugger to work with. So back to cutting out the pieces. This time I cut it on the cross. This is where you cut with the grain of the fabric on the diagonal, which means it will hang and drape better. and you'll see that I've made the first panel bigger for extra draping and gathering. Mock up the sleeves, totally haven't forgotten those, honest, and then just wait straight onto the silk with this one because everything else kind of worked alright. Winging it. And then that moment where you think, why did I do this? I have to fray check all the edges so that they don't fray. I had to use a nail sculpting tool to get a finer seal on it because I'm really clumsy. That worked really well. After fray checking forever and waiting for it to dry forever and my craft room looking like some kind of laundry room, it's all together, and now I get to stretch the dress across my silk painting frame and I can start painting it. I had planned some elaborate vines and petals on the dress, but the dog ate my gutter as it came through the post and snapped the nozzle. So I tried hand painting it on with a dotting tool, but it would have taken forever and it was an absolute pain. So I went for a few token vines and went for the salt technique. I wet the fabric first so that the silk paint will blend in and stay wetter for longer so you don't end up with dry patches or definite lines where it's dried up. And I will slowly build up the colour from the bottom so it has a faded effect. Then, using rock salt, sprinkle liberally all over the dyed area. This also works with watercolour paint. It'll give a mottled effect that looks like a flurry of blossom petals or a speckledy background. Once it's all done and dry, brush the salt off and iron to set the silk paint. Sorry about the jumps from this point in. My camera died and was being an absolute pain from this point on. I have got a new one that I'm going to be trying out soon, so some changes coming up. With some nail art butterflies, I shall stick those to her antlers. And I know butterflies are more of a summer thing, but I thought they looked really cute and it looked really good. The sleeves are easy to put on, they just slide on from the elbow joint and then you can put the bottom of the arm back on. And I add some seed beads and some other beads to the bottom of her dress to help it hang better because the silk is very floaty. I whip up a quick staff with a barbecue skewer, some epoxy sculpt and a shiny bead. Don't do what I do, use a scalpel with its handle, not just the blade. After I've popped the bead on, after I've whittled the stick down with the scalpel blade, I put some epoxy on the top to hold it in place and then make some snakes to wrap around the bottom of the base like little grasping vines. And then let it cure. And now we get to use silk clay. This is to cover the base of the doll stand. I've put the excess epoxy underneath the stand so it has some weight to it and it will hold the doll upright. This stuff's spongy and it dries, so it's really flexible, but it also shrinks quite a lot and I had to go back and glue it back to the base. Use a bit of water to smooth out any fingerprints that are on the clay and then use some tiny scissors to make some grass. Just snipping at it. I also add some small flower buds from my craft supplies. To give her hair some shape and a bit of bounce, I use my straighteners on their lowest setting and make some curls. With all nylon hair, always do a test strand to see if it melts. It's horrible when you go to start doing that and it melts something off that's quite important. Because I'm a spoon, I caught the face with the hot plates of the straighteners and it's melted off part of the layers on her cheeks. So to cover those up, I've put some little blossoms on her cheeks, which look quite cute actually, and I'm glad I did that. Now the base and the staff are dry, I can paint them. I use acrylic paints and I make a wash of a dark brown and a dark green and put that over the base so it gets in all the crevices. The staff gets a couple of layers of white acrylic paint as well. Now the base is dried again, I can go back with a bright green and do a dry brush over the grassy areas to give it some depth and a bit of life. The staff also gets some iridescent pink and green added to it, and a little crystal butterfly. This is Aviva, Spirit of Spring. She's being passed the task of the seasons from Serafina, who is made by Creative Crystal Dolls, and will be in charge of making sure that everything starts springing to life and growing. I've invested in a new camera and some new equipment, so hopefully recording will be a lot slicker and a lot quicker, and there'll be some better footage, and hopefully no missed bits like in this one, which I'm very sorry for. If you want to see any more of my work, please pop over to my Instagram, it's linked down below. Please give this video a thumbs up, and if you want to see some more, subscribe, and there will be some more stuff coming out soon. Thank you very much for staying, and I hope to see you all again. Bye!